Hey, so I want to talk about how do you actually review a manuscript. I was looking at my channel and I realized I didn't have that on there. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Mastak. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation, Strategy, and Entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward to help you out as much as I possibly can. So I apologize for doing this on the go, but this is my life. All right, so how do you actually review a manuscript? The key thing to be thinking about, it's really a mindset shift from how you're probably thinking about it at this moment. You're thinking that, hey, I have to get this person. I have to really hammer this person and be really smart and really change things. But that is completely different than what you should be doing. And, I've reviewed a lot personally, wrote so many, and I got reviewer awards and things like that. But, so the key is to think about changing your mind so that you're thinking of, hey, this is my friend, and it probably is somebody that you know. Often it is. Later on, you kind of have a sense of, it's a small world. It really is. And then you're thinking, hey, this is my friend, and I really want them to do well. And I can see that there is some amazing ideas here, but it just needs to be polished. So the key is to be excited about it. And you can generally see the excitement. Often you feel sort of excited about it. So it's easy when reviews are kind of like, or when articles are kind of all over the place and they're not ready. But like towards the end, when things get better, you have to really take this mindset where you're trying to be as helpful as possible. So reviews kind of have a structure in that at the beginning of the review, you generally point out all of the good points. You sort of have this like preamble, just like you would in a letter or an essay or something like that, where you point out all of the good points that you like about it. And there's generally, most papers, no matter how not great they are, they generally have some really good points to them, right? Whether it's the data, whether it is, the central idea of what they're trying to do, whatever it is, there's generally something that's interesting about them. And so point that out. I think you should be very much okay with pointing that out. And then what I would suggest after that is breaking it up. And this was good advice that was given to me by actually Professor Tima Bansal, who's she's great. She's very good, very, very sharp. And the idea is to point out both major and minor concerns or points or issues that you might sort of have with the paper. So these are sort of two sections that you'd point out. And, as you're reading through it, you're thinking of both major issues that you'd want to point out and then sort of the minor things. Like minor things can be anywhere from like misciting something or, spelling errors and things like that are just really not that big. Maybe an empirical method should be done, something like that. That would only take, I would say, less than a day to do those particular things, right? Like pretty minor stuff. And then at the end, there's another sort of post-amble, not a preamble, a conclusion that you would point out all of the great things that you're excited about and you sort of wish them well at the end, right? And so a review, generally, if you can imagine, I think 2 to 5 pages is an appropriate review. You could do 1 page if it's really, really short, but generally you want about 2 to 5 pages to do a good scientific review. And then, the major issues that I'm looking out for is, did they define the constructs well? Do you know what they're actually talking about? Is the problem interesting? Is it well defined? Did they actually talk about this stuff? so that you understand what they are going through, or what they're going to go and discuss. Did they define the research question? Did they go through and, do they have a defined theory section? So the introduction generally, so let me talk about it. The introduction generally has, like, this is what we know, this is what we don't know, this is how I solved it, or we solved it, and these are the implications. And you have to think about, do they have those things within it? And if they don't have those things, and if you're not excited to read it, then you probably have to think about something else. Then there is this theory section, and the theory section generally has, it's generally just talking about the dependent variable, the thing that you're interested in, and it's really focused on that. There is storytelling that goes on there, so it's hard to get more into it, but generally it's talking about the theoretical way that you're viewing the world around that dependent variable. And then you would get into your hypothesis that are really stating or talking about the how the thing you're interested in is changes with something else, so your independent variables. And then you have to think, when you're reading those hypotheses, is it stated the direction of that relationship? It does the, is there good mechanisms? Do they talk about what the mechanisms are, how this actually works? Is it clear? Can you understand it? Are the hypotheses crystal clear to the point that they're actually boring? And you understand exactly what they're saying. All of those things are really important. And then you would get into, and as you're doing this, you're sort of thinking about this, right? You're thinking about, is this paper good enough to, make you really excited? And if it's not, then you have to tell them it's not necessarily making you excited at this moment. But here's the thing with the review that you have to think about that's important, is you don't just say, this is what you do, or you don't just kind of point out, like, hey, you have these issues, but you also point out, this is what you do. This is how you do it. This is, to my knowledge, this is what you should do. And if you did that combination, it's killer, because it makes it so easy to go through and review these things, or go to make these changes, even though that they're huge changes that take a lot of work. And then you might sort of look at the, how they collected data and talked about the data, finding the issues there. The empirical stuff generally is really easy to review, in the sense that it's pretty clear cut. And you just go back to your research methods or empirical methods courses, whatever those are, and think about, how you were talking, or how they were talking about those in the class, of what you'd actually do in that circumstance. And then finally, you have your contributions and implications, which are really important. That's actually, most articles get accepted or rejected based on that. And so you have to think about, is it more, can they actually talk about the contributions and implications? So you can see that there is a structure here. And generally I'd point out at the beginning of the reviews, I'd point out the most important or pressing things that they have to work on. And almost always it's like you have to rewrite things. So I know it's painful. So that's why you have to sort of change your mindset and think about, like, you want to help them. That's the idea, is to recognize that they've done a lot of great work and they're doing good stuff, and you really just want to help them. So just remember that. Change your mindset when you're doing it, and really focus on, hey, I'm going to love on this person. I'm going to really, really love on this person. And I'm going to think, like, how would I talk to, if I had a kid, how would I talk to my kid and how to help them out? How would I really coach them through a difficult change, right? It's going to require a lot of work. And so you have to coach them through and be nice to them, through it. And how would you sort of frame it so they understand what you're talking about? So just remember that as you're doing it. Really change your mindset. Think about you're loving on them and you're loving on the idea. And generally, it shows when you're doing that. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Oh, look at this. It's beautiful over here. Isn't that amazing?